Welcome to Sightseeing Japan, the podcast where we explore the land of Hatsune Miku. I'm Paul Bresson.
And I'm I'm Jason Nealing.
Number one Miku fan, Jason Nealing.
Yep. Today, we are talking about week 2 of our recent trip to Japan. Last episode, we got through day 7. Are you ready to jump right in, Paul, with day 8?
Let's do it.
All right. Day 8, we went to the train station. Oh, we started the day in Sapporo, by the way.
And slept in a little bit after the drinks at the meetup the night before.
A little bit. Near the train station, I took a picture of Paul in front of Paul. Paul is a French bakery chain, and I thought it was funny that it had the same name as my friend here.
And it was the most popular thing you put on Instagram in a while, right?
Yeah, people loved it.
There's more pictures of me, right? Yeah. That's what everybody wants, apparently.
Next, we headed to Otaru, which is a city just a little ways, kind of northwest from Sapporo.
It's right on the coast. It's a port city. Kind of funnels things into Sapporo from there.
Yep, it's got this famous canal with a nice area to walk along it and look at it. And it's got these old warehouses from the 1800s and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we decided to start at Minami Otaru Station, which means South Otaru Station. You could also start at Otaru Station, a little further north, but the touristy area is kind of between those two stations. We thought we'd start at the south end and work our way up. So a little ways from the station, we found the Otaru Music Box Museum.
I never run into so many museums until this trip where they were really just gift shops.
Yeah.
It was a huge gift shop, but there was nothing museum about it.
They had a couple old things.
Yeah.
It's like if you look, on the very side of the shop, there are a few old things with little signs that are kind of interesting, but most of it is just they're selling stuff.
Yeah, having a couple antique decor things lying around doesn't necessarily make it a museum.
I agree.
But there were a ton of music boxes. Like, there were a lot of really cool ones in there. I was surprised to see they were playing, like, Disney music and stuff on these boxes.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see how incredibly busy Otaru was. I also visited here back in 2015. And I mean, I guess it makes sense because all the people are in Sapporo for the snow festival. So, of course, they're also going to take a day over in Otaru.
Yeah. And I think it was a Sunday. Weekends always a little busier.
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, this whole time that we were in Sapporo, I mean, it was just super busy. And of course, it's because of the snow festival. But I was a little bit glad to get out of Sapporo and to cities that were not as packed with tourists.
Yeah.
I've seen the big, really popular stuff in Japan. And now I feel like I'm totally happy, like, going anywhere but the busy places. Like, my experience, I feel like, is always better the less tourists there are. And maybe that's just me. I mean, I don't really like being around big crowds and stuff, but
I don't know. There's something about being in Japan. I saw someone memeing the other day about, like, you meet somebody in Europe or on the beach in Australia, and it's like, hey, how's it going? And you become friends and hang out, and then you, like, meet other people in Japan, and you're like, what's he doing here? Yeah. Get out of here. I'm trying to have an experience here.
Why are you ruining my experience? This is my thing.
So right outside the Music Box Museum was a steam clock.
That was pretty cool.
It was. It's like, 10, 12 feet tall, and every 15 minutes, it creates melodies with, like, steam blasting out these pipes on the top.
Yeah, that was cool. I'd never seen anything like that before. Hadn't imagined that a clock would have any need for steam, but...
Very steampunk.
Yeah. So then we split up for lunch, and I went to a place called Yoichiya Uni, because I needed to get more uni.
I went to there's actually a vegan soba restaurant in Otaru. It was really nice.
All right. Well, I had a rice bowl with uni and unagi. That's eel. And they go really well together. Also had some crab miso soup. It was tasty. Although, to be honest, I was a little disappointed that this restaurant has an uni dish that you can get with like 7 different kinds of uni or something. And it looked really amazing, but it's only available at certain times of the year. And it was not the time of year that we were there, so I didn't get that, but
That's too bad.
it was still a very tasty meal.
Looks like the only vegetables you're eating there are seaweed and wasabi.
I think that's accurate, yes. There was more seaweed in the miso soup, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, we just kind of walked around Otaru. You know, there are tons of shops and stuff to look at. I got some fancy chopsticks, man-sized chopsticks. In this store, they had a section that's like, these are manly chopsticks because they're extra thick.
They were really cool, but then you were trying to find a case for them and they didn't fit in any of the cases.
Yeah. Fortunately, I had actually bought a chopstick case in Kamakura when I was there, and they do happen to fit in that one.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's all just along this main shopping street in Otaru that's really long, too. There's a ton to see there. A bunch of gift shops and restaurants and all sorts of fun stuff. That was a really fun one to explore.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a very snowy day.
Yeah,
It was constantly snowing.
It was
pretty much.
snowing and big snowflakes.
Yeah. And like at home, when I see that type of snow, I think, wow, it's the most beautiful kind of snow. I love the big flakes. But when you're out all day walking through it, it tries to blind you, you know? It tries to get into your eyeballs, and that's just uncomfortable.
I actually bought some sunglasses here.
To shield yourself from the sun or the snow?
Both, because there were some days earlier where when the sun came out, it's reflecting off the snow and it was just killing me.
Yeah.
And then the snow was getting all in my eyes. So I was like, all right, let me get these.
There were plenty of times on this trip when I wished I had sunglasses, and I'd even thought about bringing them, and I decided not to, just to keep it light. But yeah, if you're not used to being around snow, especially, you might not realize how incredibly bright it gets when the sun is shining and everything around you is white.
And I don't know if it has something to do, too. In the winter, the sun is lower. So it's kind of like the angle is just bouncing straight back into your eyes.
Yeah. You can get sunburned in the middle of winter because all that stuff is just reflected straight at you.
But I wasn't tired of the snow yet. I was still thinking, oh, beautiful. Haha, Hokkaido snow.
Yeah. Oh, we found some of those Yubari melons. That's 24,000 yen. That's like a $200 melon.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it is the middle of winter. I don't know what they were doing to grow those melons.
Yeah. Got a picture of Paul with the world's biggest beer mug.
Yeah, 50-liter beer mug. There are a ton of glassware in Otaru.
Yeah. Tons of glass shops. They make a lot of glass there.
Some
It's a
really
thing.
beautiful whiskey glasses and wine glasses and beer glasses and all sorts of stuff.
I was very tempted to get some really cool glasses, but
Yeah.
it's so
We were still
hard to bring
early in
those
the
back.
trip, and to buy glass that we have to carry around with us is kind of tough.
And I'd already mostly filled up my bag with
Yeah.
souvenirs already.
Yeah.
I got a picture of Paul as a fish being held by Marimokori, that rude mascot with a big green bulge in his pants. So if you want to see that picture, you got to check out the video recap on Patreon. Yeah, we kind of walked around all day. I feel like we had to waste some time to wait for the Snow Lantern Festival. We ended up just like sitting in a little waiting room for a while, chilling with some hot drinks. But as the sun started to go down, we headed over to Denuki Koji, which is this area that has a lot of little food stands and stuff. And it just kind of has a really cool old style to it, kind of like Edo period thing. It's got a little like wooden clock tower.
Yeah, cool place.
And near there, we headed to the Stained Glass Museum.
Yeah, that was actually really impressive. They have a bunch of stained glass that was taken out of English churches. Most of it dated around to the early 1900s. And as churches become less popular there, they closed a bunch of churches down and they were able to salvage a lot of their best stained glass and brought it to this museum.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I'd never seen that much stained glass in one place.
I do think it's a pretty beautiful art form, but I don't go to church anymore, so I'd never see stained glass anywhere.
Right. And it was cool to like get to see it up close because, of course, in a church, most of it is like high above your head and you don't really get to look that closely. But to really like just lean right up to it and see like how they're painted and stuff,
Looking at the themes was kind of fun too, because, it's like this turn of the past century English stuff. There'd be like Jesus with like English soldiers dressed in their desert uniforms and stuff. And there'd be knights mixed in and medieval stuff. There was the one Jesus that looked stoned, just had that weird look on his face.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. It was impressive too.
Yep.
That's right next to the canal area.
Yeah, so we headed over to the canal just to take a look. It still wasn't dark, but they had these little floating candles kind of in the canal. But I don't know, with the sun still up, it wasn't super impressive, so we headed over to Mosburger to just waste some time and get some food in us. And after that, when we headed back down to the canal, it was fully dark, and it was very pretty.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, seeing the lights floating on the water was pretty cool. There's also a little pathway along the canal that you could walk that had some lights and a couple displays you could take pictures with.
They had these little, what do you call that? It's like an ice. I mean, imagine you take a bucket, you fill it with water, you let the outside freeze, and then you dump the ice out of the bucket, turn it upside down, and put a candle inside there. My dad has actually been super into making these types of things. He's had them all over, like in front of his house over the winter. So it was kind of funny to see a bunch of these along the canal. And they were kind of like little snow sculptures that incorporated the little ice lanterns. Ice lantern, that's what I'm going to call that.
Yeah, that's a good name for it. There was like the little heart you could sit in and take a cute picture.
Yeah. I don't know, just a lot of creative little light things incorporating the snow.
Yeah, any sort of like creative little thing you could put a candle in and light up, they came up with.
Yeah, so this is part of what they call Otaru's Snow Light Path Festival. So that's one of the snow light paths is along the canal. But then if you head a little inland away from the canal, you come across this one street that was actually a former railway line. And that's another part of the Snow Light Path Festival. And this one has just a bunch of other types of displays incorporating light and snow and ice. They had these towers of snowballs with lights inside them. They had a lot of just like kind of small scale snow sculptures.
Yeah, they even did the big snowbanks on either side of the path. They just dug out little holes and stuck lights in them.
Yeah, it was very pretty. Like, I feel like it'd be very romantic, a place for a date or something.
Yeah, it was a couple families, about 100 couples, and me and Jason.
Yep. It was still pretty romantic, though, right, Paul?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had our hands in each other's pockets by the end,
Exactly, yeah. And then we went back to the hotel and went to the onsen, of course.
Yep.
The next day, day 9, we got on the train from Sapporo and we were heading to Asahikawa. However, I had noticed that on that route, we would be passing straight through Bibai, which came up on an episode we did about haunted places, because Bibai is home to arguably the very most haunted place in all of Japan, which is this round schoolhouse in the woods from like the very beginning of the 1900s. And so I thought, well, let's stop there and try to get to this place, because it wouldn't feel right if we passed through Bibai and didn't try to get to this haunted place. So we got off the train in Bibai. We had to take a taxi out to, there's like a ski hill right next to the forest where this schoolhouse is supposed to be. So we had him drop us off there, and then we kind of headed towards the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. Tried to find a path, but it was deep, deep snow, and it was hillier than we thought it was going to be. It was like straight up a hill from where we thought we needed to walk in to get there. It just didn't look good.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I'd actually heard that winter might be a better time to go see it, because every other time of year, the schoolhouse is kind of half flooded. It's in like a marshy area. So the thought was, like, in the winter, the water would freeze and you could actually get into the building through the windows. Not that we're advising that, right? Don't do that, because
that would be
you don't want to
illegal.
get in trouble and stuff.
Yeah.
But it would be, whatever.
But how you get there is there's normally a hiking path along this little stream that leads to a waterfall, and like halfway there, you kind of go off to the side and there's the schoolhouse. But it was just all snowed over. There was no path. There was nothing. We couldn't get there.
I was hoping maybe people were still hiking that path in the winter, but we would have had to trailblaze through the snow, which I was honestly willing to do, except that it could be so dangerous because the snow there was so incredibly deep. Like, I'm not worried about the snow as much as not knowing what's underneath the snow. You could easily just like fall into a ditch and break your ankle or something.
Yeah, it didn't look like straight up a hill. It was kind of like up and down and a crevice here, and like it just didn't look good.
I mean, even right from the road, there were multiple places where you could see like, oh, that doesn't look safe under the snow. Like, I don't even know how deep that goes, you know?
Yeah.
So we ended up, I mean, we must have been within a few hundred feet of this place. Oh, we just couldn't get to it, which is...
Although we did have a kind of odd experience.
Oh, the voices.
Yeah, we got as close as we could, and we kept hearing these people talking, and we were like looking over the hill towards the ski resort, and we never saw anybody, but I swear I could hear like two ladies talking.
And it sounded like it was coming from the forest, like in the direction of the schoolhouse.
Where there was nothing, and then it kind of felt like it was getting closer to us, and I'm like looking, and I never saw anybody. I never saw any footprints. I don't know where that could have come from.
Pretty creepy.
They were trying to lure us in. Oh, there's people down there. That means we can make it. Even the ski hill was kind of interesting. It was like pretty small, and it was like half just army guys or self-defense force guys.
Half army guys. We just saw a little group of like 4.
They had 2 big trucks there, and I saw a bunch of guys skiing. Yeah. And there were only like 10 cars of like other people there.
Yeah. Maybe they were guarding against the haunting. Who knows?
Yeah.
So we got something out of it. We got to experience the haunting.
It was really beautiful there because this was like up in the mountains, and all the little trees were covered. All the sticks of the trees were covered in fresh snow. It was actually really beautiful.
It was very pretty, and it was fun, like looking out the window of the taxi as he drove us through town to get there. Once we got in another taxi to bring us back to the train station, we had some time before the train would leave for Asahikawa, so we ended up just walking around town a little bit. And I mean, this is a pretty small place. It was not a ton to do, but it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was fun to explore.
Yeah. We stopped at a convenience store, got some snacks, and headed off to Asahikawa. Once we got to Asahikawa, we dropped our bags at the hotel, which was attached to the train station conveniently. And then we started walking down this main street that basically just goes down through the city directly away from the train station. And that's where one of the main areas of the snow festival was.
I think it's the Asahikawa Winter Festival.
Okay,
it's the official name.
That's right, Winter Festival. And I would say this Winter Festival excels in the ice sculptures. I was more impressed by the ice sculptures here than I was by the ones in Sapporo.
I agree. They had blocks and blocks of them. They just kept going for quite a while, and they were really impressive. They were like high quality work, and they're really cool.
Yeah, incredibly detailed. I was amazed at, like, we saw a lot of sea creatures, but also insects. And I think what impressed me most is all the little narrow appendages that somehow didn't snap off. Like, it's amazing
like
to me.
The honeycomb the bee was sitting on. It's like mostly air with these little honeycombs of ice around it.
Yeah, they're just incredibly detailed.
Also, I got to give a shout out because when we went to the ice sculptures in Sapporo, they were kind of covered in snow and they didn't look as cool as they could.
Yeah.
Multiple times in Asahikawa, I saw guys walking around with like leaf blowers, effectively just blowing the snow off of all the ice sculptures.
Yeah. They all looked pristine.
The lighting was really cool too. In the first block of it from the train station, they had all these dangling like icicle lights, and they had a Christmas tree shaped thing that was lit up and said Asahikawa on it. and all the ice statues were lit up with LEDs that changed colors. It was quite the spectacle.
Yeah, the illuminations and the ice sculptures, I think, were the two main things that really made this winter festival stand out. And to be fair, we didn't spend a lot of time at the Sapporo one after dark.
Right.
We didn't really
so we don't know what
experience
the
a lot of
lights
that
looked like
illumination stuff. But yeah, Asahikawa was very cool. For lunch, I had some yakiniku. We split up for that. And then we got back together after lunch. I think we finished walking down that street with the sculptures. And then we headed over to Tokiwa Park, which is another location for the winter festival where they had other stuff going on.
Yeah, that's a huge park right on the main river in town there. And they had a bunch of big snow sculptures at this place and a huge stage made of snow, which was funny because they had this massive stage. And when we got there, it was just a tiny little DJ booth right in the middle with a DJ spinning. And this is also where they had a ton of food. There were a whole bunch of food stands set up here where you could get all that festival food.
Yeah.
They even had some hot sake at one or two places and some heated tents you could sit in to eat too, which was kind of nice.
Yeah, tons of food stands. They also did have some snow sculptures here.
Mm-hmm.
Not as many as in Sapporo, but they're pretty cool. The giant one behind the stage was Pokemon themed. They had two Eevees up there.
Yeah, they had a few
fun.
Pokemon things.
Yeah, we did
in
see
the
a
gift
bit
shop there, they had some Pokemon stuff too, I think.
Yeah. So from Tokiwa Park, we started walking back to the hotel, and we stopped for dinner at a ramen shop that happened to serve vegan ramen as well as normal ramen. So I got to try Asahikawa ramen.
I had maybe the best vegan ramen ever here. It was really spicy, super flavorful tofu and a bunch of veggies in it. That was a good place.
It was pretty good. And that night, we went to a place that had not been on our itinerary, but Paul just happened to find it. It's a bar called VOCALO Bar Calc, which is a very odd name, but their thing is that it's a Vocaloid bar. Hatsune Miku is a Vocaloid. I don't know, do we need to give context on what that is?
It's a music genre of like computerized singing, right?
Yeah, it's basically like these digital pop stars. Like, these pop stars are not real, but they're these little kind of anime characters. I don't know, that's a bad way to explain it, I think.
I mean, it's Hatsune Miku. That's what she is. She's a Vocaloid.
Yeah, and there are other Vocaloids as well, but she's the most famous one. But this bar is just totally decked out in all of these Vocaloid figures.
Hundreds of them.
It was awesome.
Yeah, everywhere. It was so cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. And so we went there at 8 p.m. It was right when they opened. And when we got in there, first thing they said is, "Do you speak Japanese?" Like, in Japanese. And I answered, like, I'm not great at it, but I can speak some. And he's like, apparently that's good enough. So brought us in there and sat us down. We were the only people in there,
Yeah.
probably because it was right at open. But it was him and this other woman that were working there. And we got a lot of personal attention. You know, they just stood behind the bar and like talked to us. And
I think the reason for that is this was one of those types of bars you see in Japan where you pay by the hour or by the half hour. So it's like every half hour there's a fee, but you get a drink.
Well, it's a nomi hodai, so you can drink as much as you want. You just pay for the time.
Okay. I thought it was one drink per 30 minutes. I could be wrong.
They kept saying, like, next drink, next drink.
Because you were always behind. You were nursing your drink. You were always, it got to the next 30 minutes. And
I don't think it was because it was
wanted
the 30
to
minutes.
give you,
I think it was nomi hodai.
They wanted to give you the next one.
But anyway.
Either way.
It was really fun. I mean, I wasn't there for the drinks. I was there for the atmosphere, and it was really fun getting to practice my Japanese. Like, we just hung out there for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, we did an hour and a half.
And we were just like talking the whole time. And, you know, we used our phones a bit to translate and stuff and, you know, get some of the more complex points across or whatever. But
they were like, "What do you like about Asahikawa?" And I was like, "The snow's beautiful." And they were like, "We hate snow."
Yeah.
And like 3 days later, I was like, okay, I hate snow now too.
Yeah.
Living in it, getting that much constantly, I get it. I had a nice chat about baseball with the guy there. It was good stuff.
Yeah.
And I pointed to a Miku figure that I like. and the woman came over and put like 5 Miku figures all around my drink.
That was a good end to the day.
Yeah, that was nice.
And we probably went to the onsen that night, right?
Oh, yeah.
Day 10, got up and went to the Kawamura Kaneto Ainu Memorial Museum. So this is another one of the museums that we hit about Ainu culture, the indigenous peoples of northern Japan. And this one, it was really interesting to see the different perspective here because this was actually set up by an Ainu person. Like this had been passed down through the generations.
Yeah, it was started by an Ainu chieftain like 3 or 4 generations ago.
Yeah, so it's all about preserving their culture and
so it was in their own words. You know, that was really cool.
It was very cool. One really interesting thing I learned here is, so in Hokkaido, there's this really popular souvenir that you see everywhere. It's like a little wooden sculpture of a bear with a fish in its mouth. And I always thought of it as just kind of a symbol of Hokkaido. But at this museum, I learned that those are actually of Ainu origin. Bears are sacred in the Ainu religion. So these statues are basically like a statue of God to them. You know, it's a very meaningful thing. But then when the Ainu were colonized by the Japanese, they started selling these sculptures as one of the only ways they could make a living at that point, which, you know, it really makes you look at it in a different way. Like, it's pretty sad that they had to take something that was so meaningful to their culture and
yeah, I think it was saying they never used to make bear statues because it was too sacred. I don't even think they used to make them, much less sell them.
I thought they made them, but it was like
only for religious ceremony or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I learned a lot about the bears, too. There's always been this connection to bears because they'd hunt bears. But it's really interesting. If they killed a bear that had a cub, they'd bring the cub back to the village and they would raise it as part of the village for 2 or 3 years. And then they would kill it in a religious ceremony once it was like 2 or 3 years old. I think it sounded like in the middle of winter. So they didn't say this directly, but I kind of felt like that was like how you get through winter food-wise. You know, you kind of kill the bear in the middle of winter, and then that provides the meat and the furs and everything that you need to survive until springtime comes.
Well, the bear's still so small.
They're pretty big by then, but not big enough to like kill everyone in the village yet. So they probably don't want to let the bear get too big.
So I feel like I mentioned this on the podcast a long time ago. There was this movie that I saw, I forget what it's called, but it's about the Ainu in Japan now. I mean, the descendants that are still trying to keep the culture alive, and they performed that ritual like in the movie, and they kind of talked about how, you know, this is our culture, but the Japanese don't like that it happens. You know, they always, like, historically, they tried to stop them from doing that and stuff. And the movie is also kind of from the perspective of this child who's like growing up around his elders who are trying to raise him in this Ainu culture. I don't know. It is very interesting. And I don't remember the bear being that big in that movie. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, the story told here just reminded me a ton of American history with Native Americans.
Yeah.
It was kind of like as the Japanese came more and more into Hokkaido, it's like, oh, you guys have to be on this land. Oh, you can't fish for salmon anymore. Oh, you can't hunt anymore. Oh, we gave you the worst land to farm.
Yeah.
So totally. They kind of run out of options of anything that they could do.
Yeah, it's very sad. That happens or has happened all over the world.
And continues to.
Yep. So after that museum, we headed to the Hokuchin Memorial Museum. Oh, but first we stopped at
Hokkaido Gokoku-Jinja.
Gokoku-Jinja. That's the same kind of shrine as that one in Hakodate.
Oh, okay.
This is like a war memorial shrine, which makes sense because it's right next to the War Memorial Museum.
Yeah, and I think there's actually a big self-defense force base right there, too, like to this day.
Right, now I remember, yeah.
It was gorgeous. There
Yeah.
was deep snow there. The torii gate's covered with snow. All the pine trees are just draped heavily in snow.
Yeah.
It was really peaceful too. Just the quiet. After a big snowfall, it's always just quiet and still.
It was very peaceful, very pretty. I'm telling you, the torii gate contrasted with the snow. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Hokuchin Memorial Museum. This is a museum to commemorate the military forces in Hokkaido, basically.
I think, and it's specifically focused on the history of the 7th Division that was stationed in Asahikawa for a long time.
And the first thing we did when we got into this place was blow up some enemy tanks.
Yeah, they had a little video game where you got to be a tank commander and shoot enemies. It was pretty fun.
I'd never seen anything like that at a museum.
This place did the propaganda pretty well.
Yeah.
They made you like rah military, this is great.
Definitely.
Our proud guys. But coming straight here from the Ainu Museum,
Right.
They told a very different story about how the Japanese first came to Hokkaido than we had just heard.
Yes, for sure.
Two very different perspectives there.
For sure. But the video game was fun. It was fun blowing up tanks, and I had the highest score that anyone had gotten that day so far. Admittedly, it was early in the day, but still, I was pretty proud of that.
You did good. You did good.
I beat Paul.
Yeah. But I couldn't figure out what button shot for the first 20 seconds, so I got a little bit behind.
Okay. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think of the rest of the museum, Paul?
It was pretty good. It went through a lot of history. So it did start with the colonization of Hokkaido, but then it kind of went through the Meiji years, the Russian War, World War II stuff, and covered a lot of ground.
I think
it had a ton of artifacts too.
Yeah, lots of stuff. I think this is where I was chuckling at the signs that were talking about the reclamation of Hokkaido.
They kept saying that.
You can't reclaim Hokkaido if you didn't own Hokkaido in the first place.
They didn't say colonization or conquering. It was reclamation.
Yeah.
And they always told the story framed as the threat of Russia
right.
made us have to go colonize Hokkaido so that Russia didn't take it first.
It was all about Russia, and the Ainu just happened to be there, and they kind of stood alongside and watched it happen, right?
Yeah. It was definitely, like I mentioned, it leaned into the propaganda. I remember we came back downstairs from all the main exhibits. There were some young girls there dressed up in cute military uniforms, taking pictures and stuff. And I was like, oh man, they're getting them.
Yeah, I saw multiple people in military garb being given a personal tour of the place. I was curious what that was about, where they must have come from you said there was a base right next to it, right?
Yeah.
They must have come from there.
Right when we came in, it almost looked like they were training in a new tour guide. Look at this experienced tour guide was giving an in-depth of everything
you think
to
that's
this
what it was?
guy in uniform. It's either that or maybe a new officer came to the region or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting, though.
Yeah.
So next we got lunch at this curry place with a weird name. Not a Japanese word. I don't know if that's any kind of word. It's just a bunch of letters jumbled together.
I don't remember what it was.
It is spelled Ygeia.
Oh.
Ygeia?
Yagia.
Yugia?
Yagia.
Sure. It was a curry place, but it wasn't really the normal Japanese curry. It was a little more Indian-inspired, right?
Yeah, but unique too. Like avocado on your curry, you don't see that
avocado
everywhere.
Cheese curry.
That's a new one.
Yep.
Yeah, they got a vegan one. It was pretty good.
Yeah. I had a fun little interaction with the woman working there. Got to practice some Japanese. I was proud of that, how that went.
Nice.
One of those rare conversations that I got through without making it totally obvious.
Oh, yeah. She was like, are you skiing here? Or what are you doing in Asahikawa?
She's asking why I knew Japanese. I was a little proud on this trip. I got a lot of people asking me if I lived in Japan because my Japanese was so good.
I do find it funny that you seem to get occasionally from Japanese people, why would you learn Japanese? I get learning English or French or Chinese or something. Why would you learn Japanese?
Yeah. Because it's fun. And I like Japan.
Because I'm a weeb.
Yep. So after lunch, we went to the Aeon Mall that was attached to our hotel and just kind of looked around, and that was fun. It was a very nice mall.
They had another cool anime merch store there. That's where I got my Shaltier figure.
Yep,
I found some of the HoloLive stuff for my brother.
Have you given that to him yet?
I did. He seemed to like it.
Nice.
Although the random, I got one of the box that could have had 6 different characters. He got like the one he was least familiar with.
Oh, that's too bad.
But he was like, well, now I can like watch some clips and see if I get to know this one.
Yeah, cool. So at that Vocaloid bar the night before, we had been talking about anime a little bit, and I told him that I liked Haruhi Suzumiya, and they told us, oh, coincidentally, right now, across Japan, they're screening the Haruhi Suzumiya movie from like 2009.
It was the 10-year anniversary, I think. It
was from 2009, wasn't it?
No. Was?
Sorry, season 2 was 2009.
Yeah.
The movie was 2016, so it was a 10-year anniversary of the movie. Okay, yeah. So this is future Jason. I actually looked it up. We were mistaken. This was the 20th anniversary of the release of the first season of the show, which was in 2006.
So we were both almost kind of right, but totally wrong.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. So that was kind of a funny coincidence that came up. And then this night, our original plan had been another winter festival, the Sonkyo Ice Festival, which is a bit east from Asahikawa.
Like southeast. But it was like hard to get there. I forgot how long it was going to be, an hour and a half or 2 hours or something
like that.
But we were trying to figure out how we get back, and the festival didn't start until 5 or 5:30. And then it seemed like possibly the last bus leaving was at like 6:30.
And they had fireworks at 8 or something. So it's like, if we want to see the fireworks, how are we going to get back after that? What so we really, obviously we hadn't planned this as well as we should have. This happened multiple times in this trip where things just didn't quite go as we expected because we didn't quite dig deep enough in the research.
We were trying to go way out there to this small town in the middle of nowhere using public transportation in the evening.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, there's not that much information out there about it in the first place, but a lesson that I learned, I would say, is if you're planning to go somewhere that's unusual or only happens a certain time of year, or it's like really far away from kind of the standard route for tourists, find as much information as you possibly can. Read all the reviews about that place so that you know what to expect. Because we ended up just canceling that because it would have, like, what we should have done.
Too much vague information, like, oh, during the festival, there's shuttle buses to this nearest station 30 minutes away, but you can't find a good timetable anywhere, or one year is different than the next year. It's really tough.
Yeah. If we wanted to go to that festival, what we should have done was actually stay in that town for a night.
Yes.
Make sure that we could have gotten there.
Or rent a car at worst,
Yeah. But I'll also say, across all of our trips, like, things never go exactly as you planned. And that's okay. Like, it's not always a bad thing. You shouldn't expect things to go exactly the way you planned, because that's where fun, unexpected things pop up that might be even more fun than what you had planned originally.
Yeah, we packed such a huge itinerary. It's like if we make it to even 95% of what we put on there, we're doing great.
Yeah.
But this was cool because I always kind of wanted to go to a Japanese movie theater.
Me too.
I kind of wanted that experience. And turns out they sell merch at Japanese movie theaters. So we found some Haruhi merch.
We got some Haruhi stuff.
That was cool.
And I was excited to see what the experience was like. Because it's never exactly the same as it is in your home country, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I was curious to see what kind of movie snacks they had, for one thing. They had the popcorn and soda like we do here, but the prices were much more reasonable. I feel like I got popcorn and a soda for like 600 yen or something.
Wow.
And the popcorn was butter soy sauce flavored, which I thought was really interesting.
Nice.
My very favorite part of this whole experience was that when you buy your food, they give it to you on a little tray, and the tray has this cup holder built into it that fits into the cup holder at your seat in the theater. So it turns into this little tray across your lap. and you don't have to like, be setting your popcorn on the floor or like
That was really cool.
trying to handle all this stuff. Yeah, it was really cool. I was also curious if they would have any like Japanese food like that you would use chopsticks for, and they did not. I was surprised. It was more like nachos and hot dogs and the kind of stuff we have here.
Yeah.
So I actually
very movie theater food.
And so I don't know. I don't like getting my hands all greasy in the movie because then it's like you can't put your hands on anything, and they're all dirty, whatever. Maybe it's a me thing. But I asked them if they had chopsticks. He's like, no, we don't have chopsticks. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. But he was nice enough to pull up some plastic gloves because he knew,
He understood what you were getting at. I didn't think he would, but yeah, that was cool.
So yeah, the movie was great.
Thankfully, I knew the plot well enough without subtitles to kind of understand what was going on.
And, if you wanted to have a movie theater experience, you could just go see an American movie. They're usually not dubbed in Japanese. It's like the American movie with Japanese subtitles. So we could have gone to something like that. But I thought it was really fun seeing the Haruhi movie on the big screen.
Although I will say there was a guy that fell asleep in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
And was snoring a little bit.
I was going to say, I've had a lot of bad experiences here in movie theaters when people are just not respectful of the experience. They're making tons of noise or pulling out their phone or whatever. I thought that people in the theater were generally respectful.
Yeah.
Except, there was a guy that was snoring through a lot of the movie. That was
fairly
annoying.
Quiet snoring, but a little bit. But another thing is everyone stayed until all the credits were over.
Yes.
I guess that's a thing in Japan too. You were saying to show respect for the people who made the film?
I'd heard about that. Yeah, that the lights don't come up either when the credits roll. You sit there until the end of the credits, and then the lights come up, and then everybody gets out of their seats because you want to show respect to the people that made the movie.
And we did get a little bonus scene too.
We did. There was a special little scene at the end of the credits. I also forgot to mention that when we walked into the theater, we got a free gift.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and I got Kyon, of course. I couldn't get any of the cute girls.
Yep.
I got Kyon.
I got Yuki. She's right over there.
Yeah, of course you did. Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was a good experience.
And then we probably went to the onsen after that.
And, we run around so much on these trips. It didn't hurt to not take 2 hours traveling each way and be out until 10:30 to kind of like, I was cold. Like we stayed inside the mall for a few hours. Although I guess, until we got out.
Yeah.
And then we realized the entire mall was closed off and we had to go out through the parking garage and we didn't have our jackets with us because our hotel was attached to the mall. So we kind of froze our butts off running around figuring out how to get back.
That was kind of funny. Yeah. We couldn't get, that seemed weird to me that they like closed all the doors to get into the mall and you could only go straight outside.
Yeah.
So we had to like run around the building to get to the front doors.
I was a little annoyed.
Yeah.
But then we took an onsen and warmed up.
Yep. Day 11. We decided to spend day 11 in Biei, which is a town a little ways southeast from Asahikawa.
It's known for a lot of its natural wonders. They've got like the blue pond and the lonely Christmas tree, the flower fields nearby in the summer, and all these famous farms.
Yeah, this is another place where we could have planned things a little more diligently because there are these bus tours that bring you out to these beautiful natural places, but we got there like not late morning, right? It was like still pretty early and all the big bus tours were sold out already. I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, you probably got to get them in advance, I guess.
Yeah.
But also, it is not the perfect season. Like the Blue Pond, we could have got out there, but it said it was frozen over. It
was covered in snow, so you wouldn't even be able to see anything. Yeah. But whatever. I mean, we didn't really have any specific plans in BA. We just kind of wanted to explore the town. And we found this one place to grab some food right away called Potato & Co. It's this little, it's not quite a restaurant.
It's like a hole-in-the-wall restaurant. Like 3 stools to sit at.
And they specialize in
French fries.
Yeah. you could choose different types of French fries. They had like curly ones and shoestring fries, but the big thing is all their dips.
Yeah, they had like 20 plus different dips, and you get to pick up to 3 of them with your French fry order.
I thought the way that they serve the food is pretty cool. They have like this little cardboard container thingy with an open top, and your fries are in there, and then built into the container are these little spots for your dip to go. So you can just grab your fries out of the middle and dip them in whatever dip you're feeling at that moment.
Yeah. They give you a little toothpick-like thing to get your fries with so Jason could keep his hands all non-greasy.
Exactly. I appreciated that.
I don't think either of us got a drink, but I saw if you got a drink too, there's a way that it like clicked into the bottom and the straw came up through, so it was all still one big thing.
Yeah, that's pretty ingenious packaging.
Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was fun. Then we walked over to this candy shop. It's kind of a little old-style dagashia.
And it was snowing all day again. It seems like no matter what direction you go, the wind's blowing the snow into your face.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, but it was another like tiny little candy shop run by some old Japanese grandma.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
I love those places because everything is like 10 to 30 yen.
Yeah.
And you can just grab a bunch of whatever looks interesting.
I got 4 or 5 things, and I think I went up there, and she was like, all right, 90 yen.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. From there, we headed to Biei Shrine, which is another beautiful shrine that was covered in snow, and you got the red torii gate and all that stuff.
That was kind of cool, too, because snow was falling off the shrine as we were standing there.
Yeah. Got some pictures.
The snow was
with the
deep
snow.
there. Yeah, that was nice. And the snow
thick
coming
snow.
down, too.
Yep.
Yeah, that was quite the sight.
From there, we walked to the Four Seasons Tower, which is, I guess, the biggest structure in Biei.
Yep.
So there's like a little observation deck at the top, and you can look out in all directions over the town.
It was a pretty cool view, but it was snowing so hard that we could only see a couple blocks before it kind of all just became white.
Yeah. Was it like right across the street from there that we found the Town of Hills Folk Museum Misora?
Yep. And that was a cool museum. It went through the history of when they first settled the city. There was a big volcanic eruption in the early 1900s that kind of disrupted the area and killed some people. There was a lot of good history there. I thought that was a pretty cool one.
Yeah, I thought it was cool too. And it makes you think about what it must have been like being kind of on the frontier, you know, this little town in Hokkaido, like really far away from the central government of the country, but also,
I mean,
most of civilization, kind of like.
Again, it reminded me a little bit of Minnesota. You know, like my dad grew up in a town of 300 people a couple hours north of the cities, and it was just like, in early 1900, a bunch of Finns just started farming there.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like similar timeline, similar type pioneer activity.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, a lot of this museum is just about like farming, you know, what it was like to farm back then. And, you know, they just had to find ways to survive out there. And I mean, even now, farming is like the biggest industry around there, right?
Yep.
They even have a local mascot that's just like made of bales of hay.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
So from there, we headed back to Biei Station and ate at a curry shop called Amadeus.
Yeah, it was a little music themed inside, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. I had a fun little Shimayanaga lassi. We didn't talk much about the Shimayanaga. You mentioned that, but it's this little white bird. It's like very round.
Yeah, very puffy looking.
And very cute.
Yeah.
And in recent years, Hokkaido has really been pushing that as like a mascot. And like I'd seen these guys on Instagram before as like, oh, look, Japan, even the animals in Japan are super kawaii, you know? But I didn't realize how big of a thing it was in Hokkaido. We saw these things everywhere. And not the real life ones, but the plushy ones and stuff.
Yeah.
Or even outside of this curry shop, there was one made out of snow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lassi is a dairy-based Indian
It's like
drink.
a yogurt drink.
Yeah, and they served that with a little marshmallow Shimayanaga on top.
Yeah, it was cute.
This was another curry place that kind of leaned more in the direction of Indian curry, right?
Yes.
But it wasn't bad.
Yeah, it was good.
Then, just a little ways down from the station, there was a Michi no Eki. We've talked about these before. They're roadside stations where they sell local goods. They're kind of just showing off like the local produce and stuff that's, I don't know, just made locally. So that was fun. I always like stopping in those places and just seeing what they have for sale.
I got some hot sauce, local hot sauce at this place. I couldn't help myself.
I got some little snacky stuff here that I ate right away, I think. Yeah, from there we went back to Asahikawa and got in the onsen.
This night, I went back to that place that had the vegan ramen, and I tried out the other vegan ramen, and it was unlike anything I've had before. It was like a cream-based kind of. They used soy milk, so it was like a white broth, and it had a bunch of corn in it and a couple like potato cakes.
Interesting.
It was really good and really unique. I never had anything quite like that before.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to try it. Although it wasn't quite as good as the other one was.
All right. Well, day 12, we left Asahikawa and made our way to Abashiri, which is kind of northeast Hokkaido, right on the coast up there. Took about 4 hours to get there.
Yep.
So the main thing that we wanted to make sure to do in Abashiri was go on the icebreaker Aurora. Paul, do you want to describe the drift ice, what it is?
Yeah. Every winter, a bunch of ice freezes up off the eastern Russian coast, and it slowly starts breaking off, and the currents bring it down to the eastern side of Hokkaido, and it kind of starts bumping against the land there.
So they have these icebreaker ships that will bring you out into the middle of the drift ice, and you can look at it. So it was not easy getting the reservation for this thing, and it's extremely popular. I mean, when we got into the station where this thing leaves from, there was already a massive line.
Yeah, that ship was sold out for sure. If we wouldn't have had those tickets ahead of time, we would not have got on.
Yeah. So we were very excited to be able to do this, and it worked out really well, actually. We got on the boat.
Yeah, we had to take the first train from Asahikawa, and we got out there like just in time to drop our luggage off and get across town to the port.
Yeah.
So right away we could look out and see the drift ice.
Yeah,
it's like
in
if you're
the distance, you could just see like a little bit of white on the top of the water.
If you're unlucky, the ice might not be there on the day that you show up.
Yeah, it just kind of floats around.
So right away I looked out and I was like, oh, ice, sweet. And it's really close. It's closer than you think it would be.
I mean, a lot of the time it's, well, I don't know exactly how much of the time, but sometimes it comes all the way up to the coast, and there's actually a sightseeing train that goes along the coast where you can look out at it. And it takes you to another station with like an observation deck where you can look out at it. But where we were, it did not come all the way up to the coast.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
It was good that we could get on the ship to get out there. But either way, I think I would want to be on the ship, because once you're in the middle of it, it's another one of those places that it almost feels like an alien planet, because if you're not looking in the direction of the shore, the ice just looks like it goes on forever.
Yeah, it felt to me that we were on the edge of the world.
Yeah.
You know, like there's nothing past this that is anything, you know?
It's just a barren landscape. And the ice has like snow that has settled on top of it. So it's, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Again, if you go on, watch the video recap on Patreon, you'll see what we're talking about. But it's
a bunch of flat little icebergs.
But they're crunchy too. Like, it's not perfectly flat because they've all broken up and like bonked into each other and stuff. And, you know, the snow melts as they rock around in the water.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just...
And the boat's just plowing right through the middle of them.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It was really, really awesome. Oh, man, I have so many pictures from this. But yeah, I'd say this was one of my favorite experiences from this whole trip. just because it's one of those things that you can't see anywhere else, really.
This is what I've been telling everybody when they're like, what's the best thing? I say the icebreaker. One, because it was legitimately super cool and it's like easy to describe and understand.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So that was like an hour-long cruise through the ice. And then when we got back to shore, the building where you actually get the tickets and get in line to get on the ship is a Michi no Eki, one of those roadside stations. So we spent some time looking around in there.
Mm-hmm.
I got some Miku stuff,
Yep.
snow Miku stuff, and then we split up for lunch.
Yeah.
And so right next to the Michi no Eki, there's what they call the Ryuhyo Glass Museum, which is another museum that's kind of more of a store. You did end up going in there later, right, Paul?
Yeah.
Because we split up, and then I went over there while Paul went to get food.
Yeah, I bought something.
Oh, yeah, you did buy something.
Yeah.
What'd you think? Do you have anything to say about that?
It was a cool place. I mean, like, beautiful stuff. Lots of beautiful stuff. I'm hesitant to, like, buy glass when I've got to fly with it and things, but I found a little pen holder that was pretty solid and thought it'd be nice when stop having to search for pens on my desk. Just always have one right where I know where it is. So I snagged that.
Cool. I don't know. There's the glass museum, and then right next to it, there's a souvenir shop. I checked out both. Wasn't super excited about either, to be honest. So I got on a bus and headed to the non-touristy part of town to go to this sushi place that I'd seen on Instagram because they serve like really big sushi, and it's called Sushi Dining Tsuki, and I got a bunch of really delicious sushi for really cheap. So Paul, those 6 sushis and then those 6 sushis, all of that together, $20.
That's pretty good. Those are
Yeah.
some big pieces.
Yeah, I mean, the fish on this nigiri is so big you can't even see the rice.
Yeah.
Those are big slabs of fish.
Yep.
And like I said, it was very tasty. So then we met up back at the hotel and walked over to Seiko Mart.
It was actually right when I was getting back to the hotel where I saw a tourist slip and fall on the crosswalk.
Oh, right.
And hurt
You
herself
mentioned
pretty
that.
bad. We kept talking about how each of us kept slipping a lot and almost falling, but neither one of us took a bad fall on pavement.
Yeah.
But man, she did. And she was actually staying at her hotel.
You said that they had to like carry her
They had
off
to-
of
yeah.
the street.
She was like laying there crying. They had to carry her off of the crosswalk. She was in pain. You know, if you fall on your tailbone or something,
Oh,
that
yeah.
hurts so bad.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get seriously hurt by slipping on the ice. And, if you're planning to go to Hokkaido or northern Japan when it's cold and snowy, just be prepared for that. Like I said, you got to get some grippy boots, and you got to be really careful to keep your center of gravity over your feet because it's just so easy to slip and fall. And if you try to catch yourself with your hand and then you break your wrist, that's
Yep.
going to ruin your trip.
Yep.
But yeah, Seiko Mart. This was not super far from our hotel, not super close either, but Seiko Mart is a convenience store chain that mostly only exists in Hokkaido. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it was nice. I'd never been to one before. So that was kind of our go-to spot when we were in Abashiri.
Yeah, and they sell like local stuff. A lot of the food that they sell says like from Hokkaido or made with Hokkaido cream or whatever.
Yeah. Got a couple local beers here one night. It was good. I got that chant stuck in my mind, though, that
How-
you didn't even notice. But
how
they
does that
played
go?
like commercials. It's like Seiko Marto, something like that. They play that after every commercial they played inside.
Nice. In this Seiko Mart, I found, I'd never seen this before, mini cup noodle. They're so cute. They're little cup noodles that fit right in the palm of your hand. Like, I didn't get one, but I took a picture because I thought it was adorable.
Yeah, you didn't get one because it's impractical. Like, who wants 2 chopstick full of noodles?
Yeah. If you just need a little snack, it's the perfect size.
And it was snowing still.
It was snowing very hard.
Yeah.
This is one of the only hotels for the whole trip that didn't have an onsen. That was
Yeah,
disappointing.
we couldn't find one in Abashiri.
There were not a lot of hotel options in Abashiri,
Yeah.
and we kind of just had to go with what was available. And I was Yeah, it was the worst hotel of the trip, frankly.
Yeah, it was. They had a nice big bathtub. Nice little selfie there. It was snowing so hard, the top of your glasses.
Yeah, snow
had
collected
snow
on the ridge
them.
on the top of my glasses. It's crazy. Okay, so we didn't go to the onsen that night. Day 13, we got up and went to the Abashiri City Museum.
This was great.
It was not quite what I expected. It was actually like an art museum, and they had this special exhibition that was really awesome. There's this artist that made all of these pictures out of denim, and you know that's my thing.
Hirotaka Nakagawa.
Thank you, Paul.
I was so impressed. Making these portraits and pictures by just stitching different fabrics together, using slightly darker shades to make shadows. It's incredible. I thought it was some of the coolest art I've ever seen.
I would have loved to take one of these home. I wish I could buy some of his art.
His self-portrait was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He used stitching too sometimes to put accents or whatever on as well.
Stitching and different colors of denim, but mostly it's just, these big like denim cutouts that he layers on top of each other. And it's incredible the amount of depth that he can create with that.
Yeah.
Like from a distance, these things look incredibly 3D.
Yeah. They look great.
So that was a temporary exhibit. They had some permanent exhibits too with other art from local artists.
Yeah, that was okay. But this is what blew me away.
Yeah, that was the coolest part of it. From there, we went to another museum with a very similar name, the Abashiri City Folk Museum. When we walked in there, I was a little confused because I was expecting more about the history of the people in Abashiri, but at least the bottom floor is mostly more of a natural history museum, and they just have a bunch of animals.
It's just a bunch of taxidermied animals.
Yeah, fish.
Like all sorts of fish and seals and mammals and
a giant
birds.
Sea turtle.
Yeah, the huge walrus or seal or whatever that was.
Bears.
There's a couple bears.
I think my favorite part of this museum was the
temporary Heisei
period
display,
one. Yeah.
So it was like 80s and 90s stuff. Like all the stuff we grew up with was where they have a Furby there and a Robo Dog.
It's all stuff from our childhoods, basically.
Yeah.
But Japanese versions of those things.
Early cell phones and Walkmans.
Honestly,
they had a lot of stuff you could touch too that, you could like pick up, which is kind of cool.
Even though cell phones can do so much more these days, I really think that this time period was the golden age of cell phones.
I think the best phone I ever had usability-wise was one that you'd like flip the screen up and I had a full keyboard under it that I could type on.
Yeah.
That was still better than, touch screens have gotten really good, but the way the keyboard is kind of crammed in the bottom, I don't like it as much.
I wish I'd held on to all of my old cell phones. I wish I could hold one of them in my hand. My favorite one that I ever had was this incredibly thin one. It was probably like a 1/4 inch thick, little candy bar style thing. It had screens on both sides of it.
Both sides, huh?
Yeah, one had like the keypad and the other side had a little like directional pad so you could navigate the menus and stuff. And I just loved how tiny it was. So tiny.
I remember I had an old flip phone and I thought it was so cool because on the outside it had a tiny screen so you could like see the time without having to flip it open all the way.
Or you could put little pictures on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had some in this museum that still worked. Like they had them powered on and you could play around in the menus and stuff.
Yeah.
They had old computers and CRT TVs. And
some old gaming stuff.
It's so funny. Like I played N64 for so long that the GameCube still feels new to me.
That's so old. Rollerblades. Like old teeny magazines from the 90s. It was nice. That was cool.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Then we got upstairs to the museum.
Yeah, and they did have some Ainu artifacts up there as well.
Yep. And then they had a section too that was more from the city. Kind of how people have lived for the last 100 years. They showed a little bit how farming technology has evolved and how they were doing it back then compared to how it got easier for them with mechanical equipment.
Mm-hmm. And then they had, was this a Showa era exhibit?
Yeah, they had like a little corner of what a living room or kitchen kind of looked like with all the old appliances and everything.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice museum. From there, right nearby is Abashiri-Jinja, a shrine covered in snow. The torii gate wasn't red,
Yeah.
but it was still very pretty.
The part that I liked about this, I thought the pine trees, it was surrounded by really beautiful pine trees.
Yeah. So here's something I wanted to mention. I noticed this at this shrine and a lot of other shrines in northern Japan. They tend to have these little, like, paper protective, what do you call that, Paul? It's like a warding spell almost. Like little pieces of paper with things printed on them, and they just kind of glue it to the side of the shrine. And like I've seen these in anime and stuff. They're like protecting against evil spirits. But some of the shrines that we saw on this trip are just covered in these things, like more than I'd ever seen anywhere else. And maybe I just hadn't noticed them on other trips, but I felt like I saw them everywhere on this trip.
Yeah, me too. I feel like it must be more prevalent in Hokkaido or this area or something.
I would think so. That was kind of cool. Where did I have lunch? I had curry udon.
This is where I made...
I remember. We split up and we were just like in town, random spots.
Yeah. This is where I made one of my blunders of the trip.
Oh, tell us.
I went to a little organic cafe that had some vegan stuff, and they had a menu of like 6 different lunch options, like, and they're labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I pointed to number 3. I was like 3 because I want number 3, and then they're like rigging me up, and I was like, oh, that was expensive, and I somehow didn't figure it out, and I'm sitting there waiting for like 10 minutes, and then they bring it out. They brought me 3 number 3 bentos.
How embarrassing.
Yeah. I said 3 in English too, so she understood that, but thought that I wanted 3 of them. But it kind of worked out. It sucked having to carry it around all day, but I ate one right there for lunch, and it was delicious. And then I ate one for dinner, and then I ate one the next day on the train ride, or in the morning at the airport. So it covered my food for the rest of the trip in Abashiri, at least.
I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go hunting for another vegan restaurant.
And there weren't really many other. There was like one Moose Burger all the way on the other side of town.
Yeah. So after lunch, we headed to another one of Abashiri's
main
biggest attractions, the Abashiri Prison Museum.
Boy, was this place big. I knew there were multiple buildings here, but there's probably like, 15, 20 different buildings to go see spread out over a pretty big grounds.
They give you a map, and there's a recommended route. And yeah, it takes a while to walk around the place, especially if you spend any time in the buildings. What I was surprised by is how much of it is outdoors. I was expecting most of this museum to be inside buildings, but out of this whole place, there are only like 2 heated buildings.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is you're either outdoors or inside these little buildings that are just open to the outside.
And we kind of went and saw everything. I didn't time it, but it must have taken us like 2 to 3 hours.
That long, you think?
I do.
2 to 3?
At least 2 hours. Because there are 20 different buildings. Then you go inside and you kind of read the thing. And there's wax figures kind of depicting life from the building. It was a wide variety. They had the barracks that the prison guards lived in. And then they had, this is what a mobile barracks for the prisoners looked like when they were working on the roads, and how they all slept with like a blanket with their feet sticking out, which just would have been insanely miserable in that cold.
I mean, I was not comfortable for this experience. Like the cold was starting to seep into me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was cold all day. I had a jacket and long underwear on.
And I think what struck me most at this museum is imagining the people living there. It must have been so incredibly miserable. And, that's kind of the point, I guess. They're prisoners and they want them to suffer.
Yeah,
but I mean, these people must have been getting frostbite and like losing fingers and toes.
I think there was one display that said when it was the coldest in winter, you had to rub your nose every 30 minutes or it would freeze and die and fall off.
Yeah, they talked about like your flesh getting spongy and like turning black and stuff.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And the reason that this prison is a big attraction is because it's important historically, because after the Boshin War,
Yeah.
after the Meiji Restoration, they basically took political prisoners and sent them here and forced them to like build the roads between the main cities in Hokkaido.
The prisoners were a huge part of how they colonized Hokkaido.
Yeah.
They built all these massive road systems, and then they farmed the land too. This was a huge farming prison. It sounded like it was like the prisoners built the roads, then the army kind of moved in and set up some camps, and then the settlers started arriving and planting crops.
You know, you were talking about the kind of propaganda in that military museum in Asahikawa.
Yeah.
And I kind of saw the same sort of mentality here where it's like they're sort of honoring the work that these prisoners did and stuff. But at the same time, it's like you enslaved these people. Like they were your political opponents and you enslaved them and forced them to build roads for you. And then you're like, oh, they made such a great sacrifice. It's like,
yeah, like lots of them died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the gift shop, they have all this stuff that really kind of makes
Huge
light of
gift
that.
shop. And I was like, I don't want anything that says prison on it. All I've done for the last 2 hours is see how miserable the existence was for all these people.
Right.
I don't want anything every day that reminds me of that.
Yeah. It made me feel certain ways.
Yeah.
Seeing all these like shirts that are like, oh, you had so much fun at the prison museum. Like, no, that's pretty harrowing thinking about,
Right.
what these people went through.
One highlight for me was the museum building there. I don't know what it was called, where they showed what a modern Japanese prison and cells looked like.
Yeah.
So you got to see all the historical prison stuff and how miserable it was. And then you got to see that, like, well, at least today, like, it's a million times better. And it was kind of interesting to get a glimpse into what that looks like.
They had like TVs in the cells and stuff in the modern ones.
A little privacy and some space. Oh, the baths were an interesting note.
Yeah.
Like every 5 days or so, the prisoners would get to bathe quickly.
And that was their favorite part of...
Yeah, I bet. It was one of the very few things that they looked forward to. And it was maybe the only time all winter that they were warm.
Yeah. Yeah, the wax figures were kind of cool. Like they had them all over this place. Really helped you kind of visualize what it must have been like to live there. And on the wax figures in the bathhouse, they had some Yakuza tattoos I thought was funny.
Yeah. And it was cool with the figures too, because they'd say like, oh, 3 to 6 guys would share a cell like this. And you could look in there and go, okay, that seems crowded. But then you go to the next one, and they'd actually have like 4 wax figures lying on the floor. And you'd be like, oh my God, there's no room.
Yeah.
Like that's just 4 guys and there's already no room. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really interesting museum. I learned a lot.
Same.
So
definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're in Abashiri, I would say make sure you can do the icebreaker ship and the prison museum.
I'd say if you don't want to spend 2 hours there, you can skip some of the, there were some things where it was like, oh, this is the shed they made soy sauce in. And it's like, okay, there's a little bit there, but like you could skip some of that stuff.
Sure. So then we headed back to Abashiri Station. And right across, well, actually, I don't know, it's not in the station building, but right next to the station, there's this pretty well-known bento shop called Moriya Shoten. They're famous for their kanimeshi, which is like a crab rice bowl kind of thing. And I wanted to eat that, so I did for dinner. And the girl that served me there, she spoke English, and she said that she had lived in America. So that was cool. I don't know. That's what I ate. What did you eat?
My second of 3 bentos.
That's right.
It was good, though.
Good. Again, that night, no onsen. Okay, the next day, day 14, we flew from Memonbetsu Airport to Haneda. And we should probably talk a little bit about that airport, right? Like, don't take the train to get there.
Oh, yeah. If you look on like Google Maps, the train looks like it gets really close to the airport.
And the stop is even called like Memonbetsu, like Memonbetsu stop, Memonbetsu Airport. You would think that it's right there.
There's a field between the train stop and the airport, and you can't walk through it. So you've got to walk 30-minute journey up around to find a road that gets through.
And with the snow in winter, it would have been impossible. Or at least
with our
really
bags
miserable.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So we just found out, there's like a airport bus. So we just got on the first airport bus. We actually realized that, I think, when we were planning the trip, because the first bus didn't leave that early. So we had to make sure we booked a flight. I think we did a 9:30 flight instead of like an 8 o'clock flight.
Right.
Because we couldn't get to the airport until 8 o'clock.
Yep. So anyway, it's a pretty small airport, but it went very smoothly, I'd say.
Yeah, this is, once we got to Tokyo, this is where I made another dumb mistake. I had checked one of my bags.
Oh, right. I remember
because
now.
they kept sending out these emails saying there's a very limited spot, and they let me check it for free. So I checked it for free. And then we're waiting to pick up my bag at the airport in Tokyo. And I just bought this bag like a few days earlier in Sapporo or something. So I wasn't super familiar with it yet. I was like, oh, is that my bag? And then I saw like a luggage tag on it. And I was like, I don't have a luggage tag on mine. That must not be mine. And then all the bags are gone and the next flight starts coming out. And I was like, uh-oh.
And I'm just tapping my foot because I didn't check any bags.
Yeah,
So I'm like, Paul, it's been like half an hour here at the carousel.
Yeah. So then I walk over to like the information area and my bag's sitting right there. And I look down. It was Valentine's Day that we flew. It was the 14th. They had put a handwritten Valentine's note attached to my bag the airline had. And I thought it was a luggage tag.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine in my American brain someone like doing something that sweet.
And knew you were alone on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, knew you were alone and lonely.
Yeah,
which is fair game because I made him wait an extra 20 minutes.
That's pretty much how I sounded, yeah. So we got to Tokyo.
Went to the Shinkansen station then, right?
Yeah, we took the Shinkansen to Sendai. So this was kind of weird. So I flew to Hakodate, we took the train over to Abashiri, and then we flew to Tokyo and then took the train up to Sendai. And I remember having a conversation with somebody before we met up, and they were like, oh, you probably could have just flown from Abashiri to Sendai. And I'm like,
no, we tried.
There must have been a reason that we didn't do that.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Were there
flights.
not flights?
There were not flights.
Okay.
Or they were like way later in the day or something. It just didn't work. But that airport's so small in Abashiri, like it's not going to every major airport in the country.
Yeah, right. But another thing that kind of works into this is that on the 14th, this is when we activated our regional JR pass that covered Hokkaido and Tohoku. So we were able to use that to get from Tokyo to Sendai.
Yeah, the JR East South Hokkaido pass.
Yeah. By the way, on the Shinkansen, I got a mackerel ekiben. It's very tasty. There it is, Paul. You can see the mackerel.
There you go.
We checked into Appa Hotel Sendai Eki Itsutsubashi, which is just a little ways away from the train station. Paul, do you want to talk about like how cool Sendai Station is with that raised walkway thing?
Yeah, it's nice. You come out on the like one level above ground level, and there's these elevated walkways that go over all the bus stops. They cross the major street. They go north and south into the malls that are there. So you can just walk around all over the place without having to wait for any lights or dodge any traffic. It's a really cool place. I mean, Sendai is a big city. It's really well developed, and it was easy to walk around, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was cool. So the first place that we went in Sendai was the Tomizawa Site Museum. I think we were both very excited about this because you get to see an archaeological site where they discovered a 20,000-year-old campsite, essentially.
Yeah. It was in this forested area, so there's all these fossilized tree roots or whatever they are, fossilized wood all over the place. It looks really cool. And then there's a little fire pit that they found. and a bunch of little stone tools kind of scattered about the area. And finding 20,000-year-old evidence of humans is very rare. Like, that's really old. So that's quite the exciting thing to see with your own eyes.
Yeah, I think they discovered this when they were planning to build a school there, and it wasn't that long ago. It was like 1996 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I think it was 90s.
So when you walk in there, I was surprised at how humid it is in there. I guess, that's the conditions they need to keep it preserved. But like my glasses were getting all fogged up just walking into this place, and it felt pretty warm.
They have this huge open pit of all the forest and where the fire was. And it's just domed off, and you can walk around the edge of it kind of 10 feet above it and look at it.
There was a kind of a tour guide giving a presentation, and there were some videos, but it was all in Japanese. But we headed to another part of the building where it's more of a museum, and that was pretty interesting. They had, more like signs in English explaining what they were showing you, and little artifacts and information about basically just what they had discovered through excavating this site.
Yeah, how people lived back then, how they made the stone tools, just a lot of cool info.
It was cool. They had like recreations of what they thought the clothing looked like back then.
They showed the geography. The sea levels were different back then, so Sendai's pretty close to the coast today, but it was an extra 50 kilometers away with the lower sea levels there, so they were actually pretty far inland. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. And then as you exit the museum, you're walking through this little forest that they've kind of recreated, like, oh, this is what the forest might have looked like back then.
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
Yeah. So yeah, that was cool. If you're into archaeology at all, it'd definitely be a place worth checking out, I'd say. Then we headed back to Sendai Station, and I got to try a local specialty that I was very excited about called Zunda Mochi. We did a whole episode about mochi. It's basically glutinous rice that's been pounded into kind of this rice dough. And zunda is mashed edamame, like green soybeans, with salt and sugar mixed in. And they just like put that on top of the mochi. And there you got zunda mochi. And it was great. I also got a zunda shake. You'll see this zunda stuff all over the place in Sendai.
Yes, and it's everywhere.
I highly recommend it. The shake was good. The zunda mochi was good. So this was at a little stand inside Sendai Station, but I also got zunda mochi other places, and it was a little bit different each place. I think this one was a little sweeter, and the zunda was smoother than one of the other ones that I had. There's one place I got it where I was like, this is the perfect zunda mochi. Like, it was still a little bit chunky, and it wasn't too sweet, and it was just...
Was that the tea house in Matsushima?
Yes, it was. That was really good. But yeah, you weren't with me for that. You went somewhere for lunch, right?
This was dinner.
Dinner, right.
I also stayed in the station. I went to Soup Stock Tokyo, which is a chain soup and curry place.
Okay.
You get to pick a soup, you get to pick a curry, and then you get to pick either rice or bread to come with it. And they have a couple vegan options. So
nice.
Actually, when I went, they had one vegan soup and one vegan curry. So I got what I got. But It was pretty good.
Good. After my zunda mochi, I also went to a restaurant for a little bit more food. I got to try something called uniku, and I'd never heard of that before, but I saw it on the menu, and it's meat with uni on top. And that word, uniku, is just smashing together uni, just sea urchin, and niku, which is meat. It's just meat topped with uni. And another local specialty in Sendai is cow tongue. So this is like, this specific uniku was very thinly sliced cow tongue topped with uni. And it was good.
I feel like a lot of people listening to this would be like, Paul and his weird vegan stuff. But I'm also feeling like a lot of people now are like, Jason's just eating like cow tongue and uni every day. I think people are probably thinking the same thing about you now.
Okay.
Just throwing that
fine.
out there.
It was delicious.
Not that
I
this is a
enjoyed
bad
it.
thing.
Look at it, Paul. You don't care about that stuff, but it's not just uni, too. They had salmon eggs.
Looks like something.
It was great. So then we met back up, and we went to the AER Observation Terrace. This is not far from the station, and it's really just kind of a random building that's really tall, and it has an observation deck at the top, and you don't even need to pay to get up there.
Yeah, it took us a minute to find the right elevator. It's like not super well marked. There were a couple signs that we missed, I think, but
So it's like part of the tower is retail and part of it is an office space, right? And you
Yeah.
have to go to the elevator bank for the office.
yeah.
And you don't even click the up button. There's a specific button that says floor 32.
Yeah, there's like 6 elevators there, and 2 of them go to this floor, and like all the others don't. And then you get up there, and you gotta go through a hallway and go through like an unmarked door to get out to this place. And it's just a little small observation deck. It was kind of interesting in that way, but it's way up there, and you got a nice view of the city.
Yep, you could see pretty far. And I mean, I feel like all Japanese cities look pretty cool after dark if you're really high up, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. So during our trip, I've talked about the famichiki, the famous fried chicken from Family Mart that I always, basically, I feel like every night of this trip, I got at least one famichiki because it's just so good. But during our trip, they released a special famichiki with melted cheese inside it.
Yep.
So that
I
was
saw
very exciting.
your face light up when you like saw that first sign advertising that.
It's great. I really wonder how long they're going to have that. But if you get a chance to eat this stuff, you totally should. Like, I feel like sometimes cheese-filled stuff is underwhelming, you know? It's just not flavorful, or it's not the right texture or whatever. But this cheese in this famichiki, I'm telling you, it's got enough of its own flavor that, you know, it's got the perfect contrast with the chicken. And, oh man, it was really good. And Paul, I am shocked. With all the famichiki that I ate on this trip, I still managed to lose a few pounds.
Wow.
I ate fried chicken almost every day of this trip, and I lost weight, you guys.
I forgot to weigh myself when I got back.
I'm lighter than I've been in years.
Okay. We did a lot of walking.
We did. Japan just has a healthier lifestyle, you know? Here, I mean, I looked at my number of steps per day since I got back. It's like 2,000 steps. I walk to my car.
Right, but if you got to go to work every day, you're just sitting at a desk for 8 hours.
Right.
You know, we're all over the city doing all sorts of stuff.
I know, but oh man, it's just sad that we were getting like 20,000 steps a day, and now I just feel like a lazy slob here. Yeah.
It's not like it's nice and we can go outside and walk anywhere.
I was actually thinking I need to walk more. I should call Paul and see if he wants to go for a hike in the woods or something.
I was complaining when we got back because it had been a really cold winter. And then, like, as soon as we left, it got really warm here.
Yeah.
But then right before we came home, a huge blizzard came and now it's cold again. I was like, great.
Yep.
I missed all the nice weather.
Well, after my cheesy famichiki, we went to the onsen.
Oh, they had an outdoor onsen at this place.
I mean, sort of, right? This is the one where you couldn't even see outside, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was like pretty tightly fenced off. You could like get little glimpses if you look close enough through the fence. But it was cool out there.
It was cool.
That's a lot of the point, is that it's cool. You get out and cool off a little bit and get back in.
How much can you really complain about an outdoor onsen? It's always great, but
apparently a little bit.
I'll complain a little bit. I wish that there was just a little better ventilation in there. Like, I wish there was more room for a breeze to come through. Yeah. Because it didn't feel as cool as I was hoping. Yeah. What I want from an outdoor onsen is I want to be able to get out of the water and cool down like rapidly. But in this one, I would get out and they had little chairs that you could sit on, and I would sit on the chair for like 10 minutes and I'm still not feeling cold enough that I want to get back into the hot water.
I think part of the issue is that it's in the downtown area. We're in this 20-story building, but the onsen's on the second floor. You know, you kind of got to fence it off or everybody's going to be able to see into there.
That's fair, I guess.
But it was nice.
It was nice. Well, I guess that's the end of day 14, Valentine's Day, which means it's the end of our second trip recap.
Yep.
Join us next time for the epic conclusion to our amazing trip. Well, before we go, we should thank our Shogun level patrons: Doug Whitfield, Georgette and Caitlin Seymour, John W., Kelly Ardong, Pamela Arola, Jack, Brady K, Yasmin, and Kevin Harris. Thank you all so much for your support.
Thank you.
And Emperor Eric, my dude.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much. I probably mentioned enough times that there's going to be a video recap on Patreon, right?
In the last episode, you mentioned it a bit. I don't know if it came up this time or not, but please go check that out. Lots of cool stuff on Patreon. Early access to podcast episodes. We got some bonus audio episodes on there, a lot of folklore and some other stuff.
We were also we were talking about doing a video where we show off some of the souvenirs that we got.
Yeah.
I'm not going to include every souvenir I got because I realized unpacking this stuff that I bought a completely unreasonable amount of stuff, and it would take hours to get through it all and give background on each thing.
Yeah, I know you're not just going to be like, "Oh, I found this cool picture." No, you're going to describe everything.
Well, you got to provide some context at least, right?
We could both pick like our 15 or 20 favorite things that we got and show them off.
If I show off my Marimokori plushie, you got to know who he is and what he's about and why he has that weird bulge down in his nether regions.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. That's something we've never done before.
It will be fun.
I got some pretty cool, funny t-shirts.
Me too.
That I'm excited to show off.
I'll show some of my Miku stuff. I'll try not to go too crazy, but man, that limited edition Miku stuff, pretty cool.
Yeah, pick a few of your favorites.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.